I've always thought that old buildings breathe just like people. They freeze when the city holds its breath before a storm, and they quietly exhale when a damp morning finally unfolds over Savannah. But on that June Tuesday, my art cafe inhaled too deeply. I stood on the threshold of the basement and listened as, with each second, a murky, unseasonably cold gurgling grew stronger somewhere below. There was a click of the automatic pump, and then it choked. The smell of stagnant water reached me, mixed with the pungent spirit of burnt coffee, and the salty dust from the old dock a block away. The basement is a time capsule for me, boxes of discarded sketchbooks, a shelf with films capturing my 20-year-old face, stickers from the 90s festivals where I went with my future, and now ex-husband. For years, I postponed sorting through this junk until after the tourist season, then after Christmas, and then forever someday. And now someday had flung open the door, let in a river, and ordered me to dive. I rolled an old wooden stool under the columns, sat down, kicked off my sandals, and in the darkness of the basement, plunged my ankles into the cool water. How many memories can leak out in one day? The thought flashed. "Hey, Miss Marlon." Someone called from above. A baritone, enveloping like the March fog over the river. I looked up. In the doorway stood Jaden Campbell, the guy from the floor above who rents the former gallery for a photo studio. 28, maybe 29, always smelling of cedar and developer. A camera strap over his shoulder, pants speckled with dried paint. "I saw the water dripping from your ventilation," he explained, squatting near the steps. "Need a hand?" I wanted to refuse. I've been the owner of this building for 12 years, changed the wiring myself, painted the walls myself. Help only reminded me that time was indeed passing. But another squelch under my feet was more convincing than pride. "If you're not afraid to get your sneakers wet, you're welcome," I sighed. He took off his shoes, rolled up his pants, and stepped into the water. The light from the doorway cast long shadows on his forearms. I remembered how the same light once illuminated a manuscript on my desk, and I realized that I had been writing for 5 hours without a break. Something like excitement flashed now too. Psychological hook. The first box we reached was soaked to the state of saturated cardboard. On the lid, a faded sticker hide until better times for 2003. "Should we take it out?" Jaden asked. I nodded, and felt my heart respond to the broken taboo. Inside, a bundle of letters, the rubber band cracked, the paper darkened. I took the top envelope, my teenage handwriting, the address, Marlon, Georgia, River Street, 17, the house where my mother and I lived. With a casual motion, I wiped a drop of blue ink onto my finger. "Personal?" he asked quietly. "Not sure yet," I replied just as quietly, suppressing a tremor. "Let's call it an archive of internal wars." He placed the letters in a plastic container, labeled it in large letters with a marker, "Keep, only with permission." And in this simple gesture, as he moved me from the category of woman who needs help to the category of woman who has the right to decide, I suddenly felt the excess air leave my chest. Contrast of the familiar and the new. We worked silently until the basement began to brighten. The sun rose higher, rays slid over the water ripples, touching the silver paint cans and glass jars of art pigments. Dust, raised from the floor, danced in the air like thousands of little lanterns to a sanctuary of the past. "Was there a gallery here before?" he asked, touching a shaped metal beam with his finger. "More than 20 years ago. Back then, Savannah thought art could save the Port District. And did it save it?" I smirked. "From the flood, as you can see, it didn't protect." He laughed with me, and the laughter echoed through the damp masonry. The first microscopic impulse of attraction. When we pumped out most of the water with a hand pump, I took out a gas stove and boiled a sesvi. The smell of cardamom Turkish coffee filled the low space. We settled on an overturned pallet, me on the edge, Jayden, a little higher, leaning his back against the wall. It's cooler here than upstairs, he noted. Because there are too many stories upstairs, and here they are still underwater, I replied, finishing my sip. He turned his head, and in the dim light, I saw, his eyes were the color of green glass from a bottle found after a storm. You know what's interesting? Jayden said. You seem to be the only person in the neighborhood who isn't in a hurry to flip the discarded for profit. I'm too slow for that, I shrugged. Or too brave, he countered. I put down the mug, feeling the warmth of an unspoken compliment settling somewhere between my ribs. Brave? The last time someone called me that was when mobile cameras weren't ubiquitous. At that moment, something clicked loudly, in the far wall, a rusted filter gave way, and a new stream gushed from the hole, the water danced across the floor, as if reminding that time might love our memories, but it is merciless to them. I jumped up, slipped, and before I could fall, his hand gently but firmly caught me by the elbow. Not strongly, not dominantly, just supported. Only a second, but my fingers clung to his forearm as if to a mast. Down here, we now hold on to each other, he breathed with a slight smile, as if joking. But something inside me shifted. The rest of the day passed in the rhythm of short dialogues, and long silences, in which I tried to understand, why does a simple holding onto the elbow sound louder than any "I will help you"? By 5 in the evening, we had pumped out the water, dragged the boxes into the sun, and the basement remained breathing coolness, and a new echo. Before leaving, Jayden took the camera off his neck, took out a fresh film. Can I take a shot? For the history of your bravery. I fixed my wet strands, posed in the doorway illuminated by the sun. He took the shot, handed me a small black case with the negative. If you want to see how it turned out, he smiled, come by upstairs. We'll develop it together. And he left, leaving behind the smell of cedar, and a tiny tick-tock-tick of a metronome in my chest. Outside, the rain evaporated right off the asphalt, and I watched him go, thinking, today I saw that water can wash away not only mold but also old caution. Do I need to say that in the evening I went up to him? But that's a completely different chapter. By evening, the rain had completely subsided, and Savannah blazed with a copper sunset. The wet cobblestone sidewalk reflected the sky so clearly it seemed the city lay on a mirror tray. The window of my cafe flashed amber, and I suddenly thought, if I leave now, the business won't be offended. I locked the door with the top lock, took the film Jayden had left, and climbed the wide oak staircase to the second floor. Once there was an abstract art gallery here now, a mix of a photo studio and a darkroom. He opened the door immediately, as if he had been standing behind it. His hair still wet, it seems he had just taken a shower after the damp basement. Behind his back, a crimson semi-darkness, a lamp without a white shade, the fringe of developing ropes. You came, he quietly stated as a fact, but his voice trembled slightly on the last syllable. I was handed a dark blue apron. Chemistry is merciless to clothes, Jayden explained. The strap lay on my waist, foreign fingers tightened the knot, not tightly, but enough to signify, here we are partners, not a hostess and a neighbor. We entered the laboratory. The smell of fixer and vinegar crashed in a thick wave of memories of youth, when I myself printed photos for the university newspaper. Developer, stop, fixer. Everything as it was 20 years ago, I said, taking the tongs. Only the camera is different, he smiled. But it seems the film captured not the water in the basement, but the excitement of its owner. I responded with a glance, and suddenly felt, the piece inside me is fragile, like the gloss on a still wet print. The first frame slowly emerged from the milky suspension, a wooden beam enveloped in watery haze, and me, barefoot ankle-deep in water, holding a box of letters. The shadow did not hide my face, it only emphasized the concentration to which I had long been accustomed, but from the outside, it looked almost like stubbornness. You pressed the shutter when I didn't know, I murmured. When you forgot to keep your back straight, he corrected. And became yourself. I lowered my gaze to the next sheet, both of us, only hands, mine, clutching his elbow, and his, supporting me. No faces, but the intimacy of the fingers is louder than any embrace. Something clicked inside my chest. This is how they hold someone they are not afraid to lose. While the photos were drying, Jayden placed his hand on the very plastic container labeled Keep, only with permission. If you decide, we can scan them so the ink doesn't disappear, he suggested, not lifting his eyes. I felt a pang. My heart wanted to open, my memory did not. Later, I said. I first need to remember who that girl was who wrote them. He nodded, accepting the pause as a promise. What happened next was simpler than in a novel, but premium for reality. We went out to the terrace, where the night jasmine smelled. On the table, 2 mugs of pressed coffee. Over the river, a light steam swayed, the warmth of the earth met the moist ocean breeze. The cafe opened when you were 30. He asked in a low voice. 31, and with restoration loans, I smirked. Back then, everyone was opening wine shops, and I, an art cafe. My mother said, too much soul, not enough calculation, so you bet on the soul. And survived, Jayden noted. Then he quietly added, to see this now is important. The words hung between us, and I suddenly realized, he came not just for the shot. He needed proof that one can build life by internal patterns, without looking at the estimates of others' opinions. And you? I asked. You shoot weddings for money, and at night, port cranes in the fog. Where's your calculation? He smiled, and in this light, the smile pushed the shadows under his eyes aside, the fatigue that the young hide to appear flawless. My calculation. To find a frame from which you don't need to run to another frame. We fell silent. Louder than the wind, thoughts rustled. What if we are a frame for each other? I can help with the basement further, he broke the silence. Call a pump, dry the beams. But you've already stopped the water yourself. For the first time, he switched from you to thou. Not a slip, a quiet, deliberate choice. Warmth ran down my spine, I did not correct him. Then come tomorrow at 8. I responded the same way, using thou. I'll brew cardamom espresso. Without it, memories are too heavy. He stood up but did not move. Maya, he suddenly said, I shuddered, a name almost forgotten here. Sometimes you don't need a developer to see the main thing. And with his fingertips, he touched the black case with the film, as if our unspoken agreement lay precisely in it. At night, I lay in bed and held a dry print between my palms, 2 hands on dark water. The paper smelled of chemicals and, strangely, of wet basement wood. Outside the window, the rain began again. What is stronger, the tide of memory or a new attraction? In response, the phone screen flashed by the pillow. Jayden, should the cardamom wait? Or should I bring cinnamon for courage too? I looked at the message for a long time and slowly typed, cinnamon only competes with turmeric. Bring both. Tomorrow we'll mix spices and stories. Sent. And at that very moment, it became clear that the chapter 1 would open tomorrow downstairs, in the damp walls, would no longer be about the past. It would be imbued with the smell of a new blend, coffee, film, and audacious hope that will one day develop to its full height. By 8 in the morning, the basement no longer resembled catacombs. 2 industrial dehumidifiers hummed on the floor, the concrete gleamed with not yet dried streaks. I held 2 mugs, cardamom plus cinnamon, as Jayden had asked, and caught myself thinking a silly thought, the smell of spices could become a password for change. He arrived precisely at 8, without knocking, with the familiar camera over his shoulder, and a yellow construction heat gun in his hands. While I poured coffee into enamel mugs, he set up wooden crossbeams, as if he was going to build a bridge right in the middle of the room. The plan is this: first, we dry this wall, he nodded towards the northern corner, where the brick was slightly greener, and then we'll deal with. Pause, looking straight at me, the archive. Archive, a word like a mine. In it simultaneously, wet cardboard, other people's dates, and my forgotten intonations. My heart responded with a mass of tiny spasms, as if miniature keys were clicking under the skin. We pulled out the boxes one by one. On each box, my handwriting. Summer 2003, collective portrait, letters from heart. Jayden set an internal boundary. I take off the lid, but you read, you. A fair deal. In the first box, films shot by me at school performances. A dozen unsmiling teenagers with clumsy Save the Bay posters. I laughed. How serious we were. He did not laugh, just took out a magnifying glass, examined a frame where a 15-year-old Maya held a poster above her head, and quietly said, "You already knew then that you could be louder than one photograph." A strange warmth spread between my diaphragm and clavicles. When someone from another season of your life reads you, the text changes, even if the letters are the same. It was the turn of the container with the letters. The plastic crunched as if protesting. I sat directly on the concrete, crossed my legs Turkish-style. Jayden sat down next to me, but at an arm's length, no closer, no farther. The first envelope, thin cream paper, return address, P.O. Box 41, Catalpa Beach. The handwriting is unfamiliar but familiar, that of the very adventurer husband who once knew how to write, as if throwing bright pebbles into the water. I read aloud. About the night beacons of the Chesapeake Bay, about the creak of ropes and salt on eyelashes. Each sentence reminded me, he still called me Maya then. The last line, I'll return when the storms calm down. I smirked. The storms had calmed down, but he remained beyond the horizon. What do you feel? Jayden asked. As if the letter got into a bottle, and the bottle was thrown back not to me, but to, I searched for a word, to a new version of me, who is not obliged to read this. He nodded, not hurrying. Psychologically, he allowed me to conduct my own archaeology, and did not offer shovels or brushes. Only a lantern of attention. At the bottom, a stack of my letters addressed to myself, Felicity Hart. Jayden reaches out to give them, but I notice a tremor in his left hand. Are you okay? Pulse has risen, he smirked, professional deformation. In a patient's apartment, I notice hand tremors, I measure the pressure. Whose patient? I smiled, but inside I felt a pang. He keeps his distance with care. I opened the first letter, March 10, 1994. Plan, open my own place within a year, not die of fear. I read in a half-whisper, and suddenly tears, not bitter, but deafeningly salty. Jayden is silent, but I feel the warmth of his fingertips, as if he is ready but waiting for a signal. I take his hand, for the first time myself. Through the pulse of the finger pads, a weak current passes. He is here not as an observer, but as a future story. The coffee has gone cold, I say, trying to gather myself from the fragments. We can reheat the coffee. And you? I laugh through tears. I've been on a slow fire for a long time. But it seems someone added cinnamon. He gently places the mugs on the floor, pulls a portable heater closer so it doesn't blow on the damp, fragile paper. We sit side by side, listening to the warming in the pipes. Jayden, I say for the first time without titles, I'm afraid that in these pictures I'll see a person I no longer am. And if you do, he replies, we'll refocus. The camera is just a tool. The main thing is light. And he adds in a whisper, so quietly that the air trembled between us, your light is strong again. We rephotographed 24 negatives onto a digital matrix, to preserve the details. In one frame, he accidentally appeared in the reflection of the magnifying glass, leaning, focused, the surrounding world blurred, but sharp. I stopped. I want this frame. Delete it? No. I want to print it. To remember how the one who helped me develop anew looked. He did not answer. But when I looked up, I understood, not only letters live in the archive. There are also frames being written now. We finished the basement by noon. Now it smelled not of mold, but of a mixture of photochemistry and ground grains. What's next? He asked, gathering the wires. Next is lunch, I said. And in the evening, poets come for an open mic. You'll bring your photos, we'll make an impromptu exhibition. He smiled widely. This future scared me less than the past in the boxes. And as we climbed the stairs with the keep container, I suddenly realized, fear is also a film. If you develop and dry it in time, clarity emerges from the murky darkness. And clarity, as Jaden said, is a matter of light, not age. An hour remained before the start of the evening open mic. The bookstore shimmered with garlands that I hung every Christmas, only now they sparkled not as winter decor, but as spotlights of a small stage. Between the racks stood folding chairs, in the air swirled crumbs of cinnamon and cardamom, because Phoebe had baked courage muffins. Jaden connected the projector. On the white wall, a slide splash screen archive of light. I caught myself admiring not the photographs, but him, shoulders slightly tense, but eyes focused and happy. Are you scared? I asked, checking the list of registered poets. There is fear, he winked, but you taught me. A properly developed negative becomes a photograph, not a blot. Something clicked inside for the second confirmation. He remembers my metaphors as carefully as the diaphragm settings. Old man Mr. Grayson entered with a cane sword, followed by Sarah from the flower boutique, businesslike Mrs. Hardy with a basket, of course, and two tourists attracted by the poster. I noticed how she, Hardy, slid her gaze over the chairs, over me, over Jaden, over our distance of 1.5 steps. Inventory of rumors. Phoebe handed her a muffin and whispered something like cinnamon smooths the tongue. I wanted to laugh out loud but restrained myself. Not yet time for wars, today is a festival. Behind the scenes, read, in the passage between the warehouse and the coffee grinder, Jaden took out a laptop. Before I show the frames, I want to show you one personally. On the screen, a black and white photograph, me, sitting on the basement floor, holding a letter, my eyes filled with moisture, but the corners of my lips smiling. In the reflection of his camera lens, his face, bewildered and tender at the same time. This is too intimate, I whispered, why show it to the public? This is about honesty. We'll leave it at the end of the series, like a hidden track on an album. Only those who watch to the end will see it. I nodded. In my voice, a tremor of peeled crust, it hurts, but air is needed. I went to the microphone. My heart pounded like bouncing film in a drying drum. Good evening everyone at the Kind Leaf. Today we read, show, and perhaps reshoot. Pause, I see Jaden in the front row, next to Phoebe. Sometimes archives find us when we are ready to stop hiding. Click, the first projection. A shot of the old showcase from 2008, still with peeling signage. Then a frame with a spider on a beam. People laugh. Click. A portrait of my former classmate in the role of Antigone. Someone applauds the past theatre. I speak little, the frames finish the sentences. Somewhere in the middle of the series, I feel, the light of the projector does not blind, but warms the shoulder blades. Support from behind. After the third poet, reading a free verse about the States, Phoebe raises her hand, can I improvise? She comes out, takes the microphone, I'm not a poet, I'm an engineer designer, but I have a formula. Takes out a sheet with a drawing of a metal frame. The strength of the material equals mass rigidity trust coefficient. She lifts her eyes. Recently I saw how my mother increased the trust coefficient, and the structure of her life suddenly withstood a new flaw. The hall is silent. Mrs. Hardy blinks. It seems for the first time she has no stock of words. The last slide, that very one, me in the basement, a letter, a reflection. People inhale. The feeling is as if someone opened a window in a stuffy carriage. I take a step forward. This frame is not aesthetics. It is a document that grown rust is not a reason to close the door. The applause is not noisy, but long, like a surf that does not fit into the tide codes. After the evening, people disperse. Mrs. Hardy lingers. Caroline, you have always been brave. But today you have become, she searches for a word, full frame. She leaves. At the doorway, she turns and puts the basket with her cookies back on the counter. No need to cover shields with this. Anne winks. We remain three, me, Phoebe, Jayden. The store breathes cozy fatigue. Phoebe nods. I'll go to Laura, we still have welding under the moon. We leave the garland lights in the semi-darkness. Jayden comes closer, blinking less. Now the frame with the reflection belongs not only to me. It's in strangers' eyes. Are you ready? If the shot came out of the camera alive, it can't be pushed back in. He touches my cheek with the edge of his fingers, just as I wiped the dust off my cheekbone on that damp day. Then let's load the next film together. Outside, the river wind howls, but inside, it's quiet. I lock the front door, already without the latch. At dawn, the store smells not of coffee, but of solvent. Jayden has laid out an old projector on the floor to lubricate a jammed gear. I, still in wool socks, watched from behind the counter as he worked, fingers in latex gloves, thin, precise, confident. It's amazing, I said, fishing out the filter from the French press. You hold the camera like surgeons, a scalpel. You like it when I cut the light, he smirked, not lifting his eyes. Click. The metal gave in, and the thin axis spun freely for a moment. A snapshot from last night flashed in my mind, how Mrs. Hardy leaves the basket, as if a flag of surrender. While Jayden was assembling the body, a letter was slipped under the door. The handwriting was short. An old-school friend Lynette. Caroline, you've always had crazy ideas, but sleeping with a guy younger than your daughter. The town is buzzing. Take care of the business. The paper smelled of mint gum, like algebra lectures where Lynette coppered. I folded the letter neatly in half and put it in the read, for disposal box. Jayden noticed the movement. Let me photograph this to burn it later, he suggested. No, a short laugh came out with the air. We don't bring back what we've thrown away. He took me by the temples like a camera lid, not for control, for grounding. By lunchtime, a warm wind burst into the store, along with it, Captain Rivera Sr. of the fishing cutter. Broad shoulders in a rough sweater, hands smelling of salted pike. They say your son has set up a theater here. A resonant bass echoed between the shelves. Do you often judge a play before the premiere? I replied. In his eyes, something flickered between respect and the first suspicion. Jayden came out of the basement, wiping his hands. Dad, it's not a theater. I'm working with an archive. An archive of what, son? Other people's hearts. The air turned into prickly salt. I stood on my tiptoes, looking straight under the captain's grey eyebrow. Your son has excellent negatives. We're just printing the positives. He grunted, but softer. Placed a bag of sea scallops on the counter. Then treat the town to this. Let them see something good. In the evening, a storm broke out. Waves pounded the pier so hard that the windowsill trembled. The light went out. Only a candle and Jayden's flashlight. Any film is afraid of moisture, he muttered, locking the doors. And you? I have nothing to fear as long as the exposure is honest. And suddenly he pulled a film container from his pocket. 7 frames for insurance, we shoot right now, without light, by touch. Developing tomorrow will show what was true and what was noise. We clicked the shutter almost in the dark, me at the cash register, fingers on a stack of old orders. Him at the door, shoulder propping up the draft. Our palms on one book, strength of materials. Phoebe, laughing, holding a welding mask instead of an umbrella. The silhouette of Captain Rivera in the window, like a ghost from the past. The letter O on a neon sign where half the bulbs are burnt out. Close up, the tip of my grey lock, caught by his hand. That's it, the film is over, the whisper was interrupted by the storm's roar. In the morning, developing, in the red light of the laboratory lamp, the frames revealed ghostly contours. Frame No. 5, Jaden's father, blurred, a wave splashed on the glass, and the emulsion ran. Frame No. 7, my lock, so sharply clear, as if the universe turned on autofocus. Sometimes water washes away the threat, I whispered. And sometimes it emphasizes the main thing, he replied. During the day, Mrs. Hardy returned, now with 2 young assistants, SMM accounts. Sales of romance novels have increased after your show. I think you need more light, Caroline, not shadows. I smiled. Shadow creates volume. Without it, the photograph is flat. She fell silent. Apparently, the main stone in our direction drowned in yesterday's storm. An hour before closing, the store emptied. I turned off the top light, leaving only the lamp above the cash register. Jaden approached from behind, as he did that morning by the sink. A gentle reminder I'm here. What do we submit to the archive today? I turned, pressed my forehead to his shoulder, feeling the smell of developer and sea salt. Today's negative can remain undeveloped. If it ever gets dark, then we'll take it out. Agreed, his lips touched the crown of my head, like a seal. Somewhere over the river, the wind rustled again, but we didn't lock the door. In the frame of the future, a free entrance of light will still be needed. End of August. On the fishing pier, they set up a white tent, the City Art Festival history in frames. Phoebe returned from Chicago for 3 days and drags the stage beams as if holding not a welding shield, but her own confidence. I lay out boxes with 7 frames on the tables, photographs developed after the storm. Jaden, in an olive shirt, adjusts the restored projector. Now it has an LED lamp built in, and it doesn't heat up like before. An hour remains before the opening when Captain Rivera approaches me, pulling me aside. Your son received a letter. They offer a permanent contract as a paramedic on an expedition trawler. The salary is triple that of the ambulance. Departure, tomorrow at dawn. He looks intently. Will you let him go? In my chest, fear flares up, but I hear my own answer before I have time to be afraid. This is not a cell to let go. If the sea calls him, he will hear it himself. The store's basement suddenly comes alive with anxiety. The city council inspector found black mold behind the lining. We give 30 days, either major repairs or closure, he throws, signing the act. The blow is like a flash without a shield, it blinds. Without the store, I lose not only income, I lose an anchor. In the evening, we developed the last test negative film in the laboratory. On the tape, suddenly 8 frames, although we shot 7. The 8th, a double exposure, Jaden's silhouette and mine, superimposed as if standing back to back, and around us, the light of a lighthouse. Chemistry could not have created this itself. We are silent. The film captured what had not yet happened, but was already alive between us. The crowd gathers. On the screen, frames flash, the captain's daughter in a welding mask, the blurred captain, my grey lock. The audience applauds as if seeing their own hopes, not our shots. Suddenly, Mrs. Hardy takes the microphone, the very one with cookies, and whispers. Citizens, the voice is firm, without venom. Mold is mold, but this store has kept our letters, posters, and school albums for 20 years. It's time to return the debt. She announces a fundraiser, to save the kind leaf. Captain Rivera is the first to put a wad of dollars. Next, skeptics throw coins, then children, shells, tourists, fare tokens. The box quickly fills with the motley noise of hope. At night, Jaden and I sit on the roof of the shop. Beneath us rustles the collected amount, and in the sky, the constellation Vega, which he once showed me in the atlas. The cutter sets sail at 5 a.m, he whispers. I'll go if you say hold on to the shore. The words are born without pain. Go if you want to return shining, not rusty. I'll close the store for repairs. Phoebe will stay with the drawings, the town with the gossip. I, behind you, along the meridian of letters. 9 months, less than between sowing and harvest. He smiles, then I leave you 2 things. 1. The projector, to spin history in the evenings while I'm away. 2. The 8th frame, to remind you, sometimes fixation precedes the event. Jane, the barista from the neighboring cafe, brings 2 lattes to go. We drink in silence, and the soluble sky slowly transitions from inky to pink. When the captain's pickup moves, I don't cry. I just raise the camera and take a new shot, the tail lights of the car dissolving in the fog, and the inscription on the body Rivera. The shutter clicks. What will you call the shot? Phoebe asks, coming from behind. Exposure translation, I reply. Because now I know, any frame can be lightened if you're not afraid to hold it longer in the developer. 2 days later, an SMS arrives, from the deck of the trawler in the middle of the Pacific. The north wind is strengthening. But imagine, if you turn the projector directly into the night, the beam will reach me. We'll meet in frame number 9. I look at the sparkling storefront after the repair, where the projector is already set up outward, and I understand, the next chapter will be written by the beam that breaks out of the roof of the bookstore, crosses the dark water, and damn it, reaches. And below the screen, people are already gathering, old gossips, tourists, the retired captain. Everyone is waiting for a new story, and I am no longer afraid of what I will show them. Because frame number 9 means that the film has not yet ended.